After an abusive relationship, I'm telling you, people have no idea who they are. You want to rebuild. You want to rebuild yourself, get to know yourself, learn who you are, stop living for the abusive person. But when you're leaving an abusive relationship or you've already left one, like, you don't know who you are. And I think so many times we're actually living for another person, women in particular, right? We often find ourselves in fawning roles, people pleasing, the enabler, the martyr, the caretaker, the peacekeeper, the trophy wife, right? All these different roles that we play. And it's really hard because it's easy to say, let that go, stop caretaking. Well, what happens when you stop caretaking? Number one, when you're in the relationship, it was never safe to stop, because if you did, you got in trouble, perhaps. Maybe you were screamed at, maybe you were insulted, maybe you were ignored, punished in some other way, but there tends to be some kind of consequence that just really prevents people from letting go as if it's this easy thing to do. I think also you may not even recognize what roles you are playing. You don't even recognize it. I think when I look back, I was definitely like a trophy partner. I definitely was a caretaking person. I felt like a friggin' servant. But if you aren't doing those things, some people are very happy to give those things up. Like, I was very happy to give up servant as a role, but many people serve and give, and that's sort of embedded into who they are, particularly if you've been in a marriage or a relationship that's like decades long, or that's a role that you did in your family, in your family of origin. If that's always who you've been, when you give that up, will people still want you? There's a real fear of abandonment, a real fear of rejection that can happen when you are redoing who you are. People talk about setting boundaries. People talk about, living authentically you and what that means. But I think that it's hard to know what that means. And I think that the advice of be authentically you assumes that you know who you are and that you're safe enough to be who you are. So many women that I talk to have been in these long-term relationships and they have no idea how to discover this. So it's very simple to just give these little gems of advice online, but the how part is really the difficult part. Now, I teach this, I'm going to be talking about this today, but I teach this in my group coaching program called Rise and Rebuild. It's a 12-week program. I co-host it with Dr. Peter Salerno. Each week is 75 minutes long, and we really get into the depths of rebuilding your identity, digging through these toxic roles that we play, how to be kind to yourself, what that actually looks like in practice, how to overcome all of the feelings that so many women have when you're treating yourself well. Do you feel selfish? Do you feel worthy of that? Do you even know what that means? Do you know what you like? Really getting to know yourself. This program is really geared towards helping women who have already left abusive relationships and just get to know you so that you have a path forward. Because one of the best parts about leaving an abusive relationship is reinvention. You get to be whoever you want. You have the power, you have the control over yourself that you probably didn't have when you were still in that relationship. So it's an incredible opportunity for people to really shape themselves, right? So I think that one of the key pieces that I'm talking about is this idea of rejection. When you are feeling like, I want to be me and but if you feel like, okay, if I ask for my needs to be met, am I a burden on people? So you're worried that you're going to be rejected. And one thing that I really feel like I see a trend of with my clients certainly is we think that if we set boundaries, people are going to reject us. If we say no, people are going to reject us or not like us or abandon us. And what I often see is that your world might get a little bit smaller, but actually it's a better little world. It's a better social network, because the people that are irritated that you have boundaries now, do we want people like that in our lives? We do not, right? So it might make your world a little bit smaller, but it'll make it better. You will be more authentic, and the people around you will be people that love you, people that really care about you and support you, and that are okay with it, right? Some are okay with the change and some are not, but I think you learn, right? You learn something from the people that walk away. If they're not okay with the new you, what does that say about them? What were they gaining from you while you were losing, while you were giving? I think that one of the kind of sucky things about leaving an abusive relationship is you get rid of the abuser and you think, oh, this is going to be so much better now. And you actually start to realize as you get healthier, there are people in your life that aren't healthy. And that gets highlighted because you get healthier and suddenly you're like, what is wrong with some of these people? What is wrong with some of these people in my life? So we have to cut them. But there's also this desire for approval. And obviously in an abusive relationship, like you really want the abuser's approval, especially if you're trauma bonded, right? You really feel this need to get their approval. They condition you to like want it, but need it, right? You really feel desperate for that approval. But often we need validation and approval throughout our lives from other people. But what we want to do is be able to get it from ourselves. Obviously, you want to get all of your validation and whatever from inside you. But again, how do you do that? There's something really kind of tricky about this. People want to sort of build the confidence to not need other people's opinions or need their validation or approval. But the way that you do that is not through watching TikToks and not through watching YouTube videos and reading books about it, but actually through the practice of doing it. Courage is built through action. It's not built watching videos, despite watching this one. It is not built that way. You need to be practicing it. So what can you do in your day-to-day life that chooses you? What can you do to center yourself? You know, silly examples. You're getting a new job and you're going for a new job and you want to know what your mom thinks or your sister thinks or your best friend thinks or whatever. It's not that it's a bad thing to ask other people for their opinion, but what I invite you to do is actually just think about your own opinion first. You know, the sort of default that we get into sometimes of like, I need to get somebody else's advice because I don't know. Just slow your roll for a moment, okay? And actually say, what do I think? And I don't know isn't acceptable. Keep going. What makes me not know? What am I not sure of? What do I want from a job? What do I want from a relationship? What do I want? You know, and really think about that. What makes me happy? What makes me tick? Get to know yourself and learn who you can trust, certainly in your life. So if you are asking people, you know you're asking the right people, which is really hard to figure out maybe who those people are. But this shift that you're going to make to validate yourself. What do I want to eat? What do I want to wear? Do I think this is a nice shirt? Do I want to buy this new necklace? What do I think? If you like it and you have this need to like check with another person, what is this person going to say? I think something's really interesting. I remember talking to my sister recently even. I was asking her something and I was like, I already know what you're going to say. And after I was leaving her a voice message, but after I left it, I thought to myself, if I know what she's going to say, why did I ask? Right? It was like I wanted confirmation. It was actually validation that I was already making the right decision, and it was something so insignificant. But to a degree, it's normal. You're close with someone. It makes sense. But just sort of check in with yourself that you're not unable to make decisions for yourself. Think of what you want first. A good way to sort of center yourself, maybe it's because I'm Italian and I love food, but I always think about like, what do you like to eat? Because it's always sort of like, oh, we're going for dinner. Where do you want to go? Where do you want to go? Where do you want to go? What do you feel like eating? Do you always defer to other people? It's not a matter of becoming combative and being like, I decide where we go. It's just like, I'm going to say my opinion. I'm going to speak up. I'm going to test my safety. And it's always good when you're testing approval and validation and testing rejection and like getting to know the people around you differently as you heal, to really shift and test with people that are safe. Because if you're used to being in an abusive relationship or you have a family member or something that just kind of, I don't know, always negative or always gets their way, people tend to defer to the person in a social setting or in a familial setting. You defer to the person who's like the most difficult or the most combative because it's easy. But all I'm asking is for you to not defer to someone else anymore and just think, what do I want first? You might say, I want sushi, you want Mexican, and maybe you go for Mexican. That's not the point. It's, can you just speak up for yourself? Because maybe your friend goes like, I really want Mexican tonight, but I know we're going out again next week. We'll go for sushi then. Ridiculous example, right? But this is small ways, just small ways, because that's going to build for you to be able to say bigger things about yourself and actually say, you know what, I don't like when you talk to me like that. And we started talking about food, but then it becomes about how people treat you, how people interact with you, you know, at work. I don't really want people busting into my office and machine gunning me with questions. You know, if you have a request, this is how I prefer to be communicated with. Can you advocate for yourself? Women struggle with that a lot because we're kind of shut down, right, in a lot of ways. And we are taught to defer to other people. Don't be selfish. Don't be this. Don't be that. Remember, be forgiving. Be this, be that. Like, you can't win sometimes as a woman in this world. So be yourself and learn who that is and work through that. Again, this is something that I'm teaching inside Rise and Rebuild, the group coaching program. It starts September 23rd, and I co-host it with Dr. Peter Salerno. So I host 6 and he hosts 6, and we take you through this path of really like rebuilding who you are at its core and what stops you from living your authentic self. Because it's not just how to be it. There's parts of you that are patterns in you and possibly the way that you've been conditioned. I think what's really interesting about people who've been in abusive relationships is that it's often not the first time you've been in something, I'm going to call it toxic. Abuse and toxic's not the same thing, but to really look at the pattern in your whole life. Perhaps you were in a familial dynamic that was like not so great, maybe enmeshed, maybe codependent, maybe inconsistent, maybe abusive, but even neglectful, or a parent that had really difficult emotions all over the place. You know, a really great book is The Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents by Dr. Lindsay Gibson. It is such a good book. And she actually has this whole list. It's a personal code of conduct, a personal code of integrity. And it's like your rights as a person, what you have the right to do, to feel. But often we're not taught these things. And in fact, we're taught the opposite. You know, like, I'll give you something to cry about, right? Or go to your room, or depending on our ages, we're all raised differently. I'm a millennial, so that was very common. That's really, really common for people. Someone in the comments is asking what the difference between toxic and abusive is. And I actually have a ton of videos on my YouTube specifically about that. But I think that, and some on this, on TikTok as well, but fundamentally the difference is like toxic people can learn how to be better. Like you really just don't know better. And I think this is where it gets kind of tricky, right? Because abusers are like, why are you mad at this? So it seems like they don't know better. But the thing with somebody who's toxic is when you tell them like, hey, ABC hurts me, they might be like, what? That hurts you? I don't understand that. But they're willing to learn. Where it's abuse is like ABC shouldn't bother you, or ABC is not happening, right? Straight up gaslighting. But there's sort of a denial and then repeated behavior. Abuse is when the pattern is 2 or more times. Can you believe that? 2 or more times. And you're like, they've done it like 500 times. Yep. So there is a significant difference between abuse and toxicity. And I think that fundamentally toxic people can change and abusive people won't change. It's not even about can't. They're not going to. They're just not going to, because it benefits them. Truly check out some of my YouTube videos on the fact that they can't change, won't change. That benefits them. They're entitled. They're superior. That's what's going on up there. And it makes us afraid to exist outside of the lines that they want you in, right? This is your box. This is what you do for me, and I don't accept anything else. This is how you behave. We don't even realize that we are being so controlled. And control can show up in so many different ways, right? It can look like straight up, you can't go there. And it can look like, you can go. I let you do whatever you want. That's totally fine. And then they'll call you like 43 times when you're out, or be like, you want to go hang out with your friend Daniela? Whatever, it's fine. I mean, she hates me. If you want to go hang out with people who hate me, do you. And you still feel coercively controlled. Or praise, right? I love when you stay home. I love knowing where you are. You're such a good wife. You're such a good girlfriend. I always know where you are. You're not one of those women. And then it makes you want to not be one of those women. But there's lots of different ways that they do it, but they're breaking you down. You're not making decisions for yourself. You're not living in a way that makes you happy. You are performing. But if you have always been performing, if this has been who you are, where you literally are like, I don't know, I just be who people tell me to be. My parents needed me to be this, so I was that. My husband needed me to be this, so I'm that. That is really, really common. And I think that the pattern is so many survivors have no idea. That is something absolutely common that I see. You have no clue who you are, what you like. And I'm talking everything from like your favorite color to the kind of human being that you want to be, the kind of life that you want. Living authentically you is very fluffy, but if you were not allowed to have your identity, it is not safe. So all these people that are like, be yourself, how I am so big on actions and how and why, you know, really digging into it, because fluffy advice, like, you know what you need, Kathy? You need better boundaries. If my entire life, all I have ever known is that I need boundaries, but I can't have boundaries because when I do, everyone around me gets angry or walks away or makes me feel bad, you internalize a lot of these beliefs and you might not even think that you deserve boundaries. So let's take 33 steps back and dig in a little bit deeper and learn why you feel like you're not worthy of boundaries, or where these beliefs came from, so that we can shift the belief so that you can have boundaries, so that you can feel safe in the world again. Because we can't skip steps here, right? When we look at some roles, speaking of performance, right? We are performing these roles. So I was performing a role of caretaker because that's really not who I am. Like, listen, some women are like amazing housekeepers and they really love that and that's their thing. And I'm a feminist, right? So like, do you, whatever makes you happy, girl. But that's not really who I am. I like having a clean home. I like having a nice home, but I'm not like, oh, I love cleaning. You know, the rage cleaning or anxiety cleaning, or you just love to have things a certain way. I like it to be that way. I don't like to do that, but that was my role. I was a friggin' housekeeper when I was in my abusive relationship, and I had to. And if I didn't, like, God forbid, I suggested we hire someone. Oh my God, right? Like, you're lazy, you're this. So like, it wasn't that the sink had to be clean. It was that I had to clean it. There was part of that. So it became part of my performance. But who am I? And I mean, we're talking about an action less on like as a human being, but you can kind of take it in any direction you want. But we perform all these toxic roles. And we cover this in week 3 of Rise and Rebuild a lot, like really, really in depth. There's worksheets and everything in this program, but like the caretaker roles, the approval seeking roles, the peacemaker, the martyr, the pleaser, the sex object, like so many things, right? We perform, and it's infuriating. All of these roles help you survive, but they're not necessarily who you are. So we take a step back and we really break that down. Who did you have to become in order to survive in an abusive relationship or in an abusive family dynamic? Who did you have to become to survive? And can you see it as survival? Because so many people are like, well, she chooses to do his laundry. I mean, he's abusing her and then she like cooks and cleans. And do you know what happens if you don't do the things that you're supposed to do? We know, but people on the outside, they think you can just say no. It's one thing that's just like, not to go on a side note here, but totally random to me, totally shocking to me, that people are like, well, if you're so afraid, why didn't you leave? Because I was so afraid. Fear keeps you in the relationship. Fear is not the thing that gets you out. It's really not. Courage gets you out. And I don't even want to say strength. Despite my screen name being stronger than before, it doesn't make the people stuck, trapped, or choosing, big air quotes, to stay are weak. This really isn't about strength. You feel stronger because you've been like beaten down, hopefully not literally, hopefully metaphorically, but you've been beaten down into this version of you that's smaller and more palatable. And, you know, especially if you're with one of those really, I mean, in my opinion, all abusive men are misogynistic, but ones that are like particularly overtly misogynistic, you get put into this role of what a woman is. And then if a woman has to be feminine or, you know, wear makeup, or he wouldn't let you wear makeup or whatever, like, what do you want? Do you want to wear, mine used to be like, you're so much prettier without makeup, which I'm not saying that every man that uses that phrase is being abusive. But what I'm saying is those guys that like, You look prettier without makeup. I don't know why you wear all that shit on your face. I don't know why you're doing that. What's with your eyeliner today? Listen, you, right? Like, I love wearing makeup. I love putting makeup on. Do I think I'm attractive without makeup? I sure do. But guess what? I like the act of putting it on. I have a vanity table. I sit down. I enjoy it. So like, piss off. I'm going to keep wearing makeup. And he never got me to not. But I could see that he was trying to. And it's again, like, see the compliment, right? How is that abusive? He told you look pretty without makeup? You got to hear the tone in it, right? Like, why are you wearing makeup to the gym? Look, what do you want me to... Some women go to the gym after work. If you wake up at 4 a.m. and do a full face of makeup to go to the gym, maybe that's a little different. But what if you go after work? You must take your makeup off first? It's crazy, right? But they're trying to like get in your head and change you and get you to perform the role that they want you to perform, that benefits them, that serves them. This is how abusive relationships work. Family, like personal relationships, romantic partnerships, they're all working to get you to give and serve. And we need to think more about what we can do for ourselves. But I think that often, you know, there's like a, maybe even I'll call it like a shame spiral that can happen in like, oh, I've been working, you know, showing up as somebody else and I'm stupid, or I'm too much. Nobody will like me. You know, you start to feel shame of who you actually are. But I think so often that voice is somebody else's voice. I don't think that's you. We are not born thinking these awful things about ourselves. But if your mom was always like, in fact, I had a client the other day tell me, you know, her mom, every time she talked as a kid or would offer an opinion, it was like, oh, Kelly, that's enough, Kelly. That's rude. That's so rude. That makes you feel small. And I know it's not overtly awful, right? It's not like her mom was calling her names, but her mom was subtly telling her that she didn't matter and that her opinion just isn't important. That's sad. That's heartbreaking. But if you feel that the most important people in your life are not okay with you and they want you to be quiet or small, then you will make yourself quiet and small, because we naturally, unconsciously try to get our needs met. And we do that through performing. And then you are primed for an abusive relationship. And then if you can claw your way out, I was going to say get your way out. If you can claw your way out, you're left with like, who am I? You know, what else am I performing? But I'm telling you, that voice, it's this little inner critic. It's someone else's voice, but it becomes our own voice. So it sounds like your actual real belief. And I don't think that that is it. And I think we can replace that belief, and that's important work. There's a lot of CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy techniques that really are very effective in reframing, as well as some DBT that kind of helps you regulate so that you can take in this information about yourself and feel that, right? Really feel like you. But I think, you know, this thing that you're being sold so often of like, find your authentic self. I don't think there's even one version that you're looking for. It's not like you can write down this version of who you are and then that's who you are. I think we are human and ever growing and ever changing. And so discovering who you are is a lifelong, it sounds so therapy, right? Lifelong journey, but it's a path that you're on. And you don't want to get off it because you are constantly discovering yourself. You know, if you have been afraid to try new things, try one thing new, try something small, wear something different, do something different, eat something different, back to the food. But we need to just learn ourselves. And, you know, when I was talking about courage, it's built through action. I honestly think like authenticity is built through trial and error, through doing and learning like, actually, that's not me. And that is me. And this, you're just trial and error, and that's okay. It's okay to be wrong. It's okay to guess. And when you are surrounded by safe people, you're really going to learn something, you know? And if you're surrounded by people that are like, Stacey, stop that. We don't want that person in our lives, right? We're going to go no contact with that person, or low contact depending on who they are. Just no. I always want to remind people Not everybody's going to like you. I always struggled my whole life with this likability factor, and it was something that my abuser used regularly, right? And it was very like, some people just don't like you. That's okay. I like you, right? Not everybody's going to like you. And it's true. And yet he was poking at me. He wanted me to know that people don't like me. We all know that to be true because you don't like everybody. So why would everybody like you? But yet saying it to someone else kind of out of context for no reason, just to hurt. Why? But that's something that they do to break you down. So you'll notice if you are trying to learn who you are and stand up for yourself, if there are people in your life that are not receptive to that, we're learning something about these people, write it down, get rid of these people, right? We need to, but we talk about rejection and abandonment, being afraid that other people are going to abandon us. But I think the ironic part is that in serving others, you abandon yourself. So there is still an abandonment, and I think a much more deep and significant abandonment of the self than not having other people. Like, we want human connection, we want people around us. I get that. That's psychology. But this is not about being fearless, right? That somebody else is going to walk away and just feeling like, well, I am who I am. You can, as long as you're being a good person and you're being kind to others, you can still put yourself first. You know, some advice that I really hate is when people tell you, like, don't worry, girl, be selfish. It's fine. You know what? Like, you deserve to be selfish. Being selfish is a bad thing, right? That's the connotation of it. And I know what people mean. They mean like it's okay to choose you. Why are we calling that selfish, right? Like, it's okay to be selfish. You're not a selfish person, I bet. You're empathetic and strong and kind. Being selfish doesn't feel good. So somebody giving you permission to be something negative that you don't want to be, there's a huge disconnect for so many people. And so I invite you to not see it as selfish. I want you to see this as an act of self-love. Choosing you isn't selfish. Saying, hey guys, this is what we're having for dinner tonight, if you're doing the cooking for your family, that's not selfish. Like, screw everybody else for a second here. You're probably constantly catering to other people. And again, just silly examples, but how can you show up for you? Do you want to go out with your friends tonight, or do you want to stay home and just Netflix and lay on the couch? Because rest is productive. Do you feel like you're going to be rejected or abandoned by other people? And if so, how can we address that? How can you practice in your real life not being abandoned by people so that you can build safety, emotional safety with the people around you, and trust, but self-trust, that you are not going to abandon yourself in the process, because there's still abandonment happening in that case. So we want to not do those behaviors. I will again remind you that in Rise and Rebuild, my 12-week group coaching program that I co-host with Dr. Peter Salerno starting on September 23rd. This is a 12-week program, 75 minutes each course. And we meet at the same time every week, and we really dig deep into a lot of what I'm talking about with a lot more specific how and why, and really digging in. For those that don't know Dr. Peter Salerno, he is an amazing researcher, author, and retired psychotherapist who specializes in cluster B disorders. He's written some amazing books, Traumatic Cognitive Dissonance and the Nature and Nurture of Narcissism. So he's an amazing expert, and I'm very happy to be co-hosting this with him because we both specialize in trauma bonding, which is what we all are either in or I hope out of, and then the rebuild happens after that. Like, I so see this in a visual sense of rebuilding from the ashes. Do you not see it that way? I felt like a pile of rubble at the end of the abusive relationship, and rebuilding is one of the most important things you can do for yourself. That is something that you can do completely for yourself that will benefit you in all areas. It's the best thing. Every time you choose honesty with yourself over performing for other people, you are living authentically you. How to do that and feel safe again and feel good in the world and feel like you know who you are, it's incredible. This is what you want to do. Know who you are all the time. if you find yourself playing these toxic roles, even within your family, or if you're still in the abusive relationship, really consider the role. What are people expecting of you? That's huge. And think about small ways that you can kind of build routines into your life where you choose you. Like, what's something that you secretly love that you don't tell anybody about? Like a reality show or some food or a place or something. Like, what do you love that you don't talk to people about? What feels exciting? What feels terrifying? These are ways to kind of really get to know yourself. As hard as that may be, it is such a necessary part of healing. We spend so much time in an abusive relationship, and as we're coming out of it, it's like, why did he do that? Why? What made him do it? Is it trauma? Is it this? Is it that? Find something that you can focus on that isn't why they did what they did, and really like find books and videos like this, and just find opportunities to sort of center yourself in the healing, because all of that time we spend focusing on why they do what they do, it matters in the beginning stages. You know, when you get your PhD in narcissistic abuse, that matters. But I'm telling you, the transformation is when you let that go and you're like, okay, what got me here? From a place of curiosity, not judgment, not why did you pick him, but what got you here? What made you feel like this was normal? What patterns from your childhood have kind of carried you through that have made you feel stuck? What patterns that made you feel like any of this was normal, that it was okay that this person treated you this way? How did it become normal? Now, I know that it becomes normal through, it's like death by 1,000 paper cuts, right? It's small things, but this is erasure. This is how they do it over long periods of time. And frankly, sadly, some people who are narcissistic are very quick at destroying you, but it gets worse and worse and worse as time goes on. So find something for you that brings you joy and start learning about yourself. Learn what got you here. Learn what makes this so hard. Learn what your core fears are. Learn this and join Rise and Rebuild on September 23rd. We're almost sold out, but there's a few spots left. So I really invite people to like get to know you and start to love yourself. I want to finish with, I used to think, no joke, that this is stupid. All of this, everything I just said is like fluff and nonsense and this like self-love. I honestly used to say that people that go home, like they online and they're like, I'm a self-love coach. Shut up. Shut up. You hate yourself, don't you? You cry in your pillow every night. I remember being like so pissed off, and actually hate to call women bitter, but I would say that I felt quite bitter at the time. But this feeling of just like, I don't buy it, right? This is like a sales pitch. I don't like it. But I felt the same way about breath work and grounding techniques. And as I have learned, all of these things actually work. Self-love is built through daily practice. It's not bubble baths and manicures, right? Like piss off. You can get that, and that's self-care, and I get that. I've got my nails done too. However, that's not like, oh, I love myself because I go get manicures. I love myself because I don't let people treat me like crap anymore. I love myself because if I want to sit down, I'm going to fucking sit down. I want to read a book, that's what I'm going to do. And I make sure that my responsibilities are handled. I'm not selfish, but I choose me. Whenever there's an opportunity to choose me, I choose me. And that's what I want people to understand, is that that's not selfish. That's a good thing. The conditioning of women. Somebody in the comments wrote like, oh, I took up golf. And I know you were just talking about a hobby, but it made me think about like men have golf, right? I know it's not only for men. I know. But men go golfing for like 7 hours on a Saturday. Well, what's the women equivalent of that, right? I was watching Abby Eckel talk about that. There doesn't really seem to be like a 7-hour Saturday afternoon thing that women do religiously every friggin' Saturday that takes them away from all of their responsibilities for such a lengthy amount of time that men have. And I'm not saying do that. Maybe that's too far to make it such a thing, but what do you have that brings you joy? Men are so happy to go out and just ditch their families and go do whatever they want. And all you want is to not like eat a snack hiding in the pantry, right? You want to be present for your family, but be present for yourself. Be authentically you, but you have to know who that is first. And you have to break down some of the things that you've learned and been conditioned to be. You don't have to be the person that people told you to be. It might feel so natural to you. It almost feels like it is who you are because you've been performing this role since you were a little kid. But there is this opportunity now in being whoever you want to be. And now I finally do believe in being happy and being yourself and knowing who you are and living in a way where people aren't able to really push you around, because when they try, you're like, I don't like this feeling. And then you're going to cut that person right out of your life or start spending a hell of a lot less time with them, right? So this is all about learning. And I'm a certified coach. I teach people how to exit abusive and toxic relationships, specializing specifically in how to break trauma bonds. But within breaking a trauma bond is the rebuilding aspect. What happens? Okay, you broke your trauma bond. Now what? Who are you? What does life look like? Rebuilding this future. We often can't even picture what that means without this person. So I teach women how to rebuild. And in this program, Rise and Rebuild, starting September 23rd, we're teaching what this means and really going into the depths of it. So I hope that you'll be there, but if not, please, subscribe and follow and stick with me, because this is what I teach. And I'm so excited for everyone to learn this and really become their most authentic selves.